Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We all are, I am so happy to be here. I think everybody else is too. And it was fun to be able to have a good reason to get out of my pajamas today. But I want to make sure this is recording. Yes, it's recording. Awesome. So I'm so excited to be doing this. I have three amazing women on this call today that I want to introduce to you, and I'm so excited to hear their information and their education that they're going to share with us. I'm just going to start. I'm going to actually read their a bio that I've written on them that I don't want to miss anything. So I'm actually going to read what I have written down, but we're going to start with Dr. Eileen Karpfinger. And Eileen is a chiropractor. She's a functional nutritionist, and she specializes in finding holistic solutions for any condition. She's also a mom of four. I don't know which job is more challenging, but they both sound absolutely wonderful. That's what I thought. I also have Dr. Leta Jussila. We're going to call her Dr. Leta. And she is a doctor of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine. And she's a certified Cannabinoid Medicine specialist who trained in neuromuscular pain movement. And this led her to become a Gong Instructor, which I am super excited to get involved with. And this was before pursuing, and this led her to pursuing studies in functional and cannabinoid medicine. Her practice is in Santa Cruz, California. Dr. Eileen is actually in Northern California, although she's in Wisconsin right now with her family. We also have Dara Ekster, and Dara lives in Taos, New Mexico. She is also a mom of three, and she's a massage therapist specializing in women's health and Mayan abdominal massage. And she's a retired home birth midwife, organic farmer, and she has extensive knowledge in plant medicine. She's also an incredible leader in Prime My Body. And this is a company that all four of us are involved in. We're all affiliates in this hemp company. And this is how we all got connected. The beautiful thing about this is we have all dedicated our careers to supporting and helping the healing of women. And I'm sure everyone on this call will agree that using the tools and using hemp, that medicine has been a tool, I should say, that has really helped fast track and really helped support the healing of our women clientele. And that's why I wanted to get us all together here today so that we could see everybody's perspective and really learn more about what's going on with our bodies. I myself am an occupational therapist, and I specialize in a type of body work to help women with their posture, with pain, with pregnancy. So it's a hands-on technique. John Barnes myofascial is one of the main ones I use. I do visceral work. I also have a specialty in pelvic floor health, meaning that I work with women with anything from painful sex to leaky bladders to pregnancy, infertility, all that wonderful, wonderful stuff. So my practice is hands-on, and I'm working with them, and my main goal is to get women out of fight or flight and freeze and into rest and digest, because you cannot heal when you're in that fight, flight, or freeze stage, which so many of us are in, particularly right now. And that's why I would love to hear from each of you, your perspective on what's going on inside the body when my hands are on their body, what's going on inside their body when they use tools like hemp oil to create an environment where they can have more healing. And I'd like to start with you, Dara, if you don't mind. If you would give us a brief introduction into the ECS. I'm going to attempt to say this. I have a problem with saying this word. I don't know why. So endocannabinoid system. So that is why I call it the ECS. But if you introduce us to that, and then your perspective on women's bodies and what's going on in there. And yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you everyone so much for being here. We had some tech difficulties to start. So anyone who's streaming live right now, thank you for your patience. And I'm just grateful that we're here having this conversation. Thank you, Erica, for your vision to do this. You serve women in so many ways. And, you know, women's bodies we're going to just have a really candid, open conversation here. So I'm grateful for that. Women's bodies are inextricably linked with nature, with the natural rhythms, right? Our moon cycles go along with the moon, just like the tides. It's amazing the rhythms we have. I've been following this woman on Instagram. Flow Living is her handle. I forget her full name, but she talks about the infradian rhythm. We have a whole other rhythm. Women from, that are menstruating up until menopause, we don't have a circadian rhythm that functions, but we have this other rhythm with our cycles. And so when we are in tune with ourselves, with our cycles, with nature, we can help our bodies come into balance. And for myself, about 18 years ago, I decided to go into midwifery and to go into massage therapy. And my whole intention in doing that was to help women to release trauma, to help women doing body work to release any trauma that they had faced in their life so that they could live their best life inside their body, inside their mind. And also with women giving birth, because it's so easy for trauma to come up as women are birthing their babies into the world. It's such a vulnerable position to be in. And so, that was my intention to serve women in that way, because when we look at the statistics, and Erica and I, talk about this, 1/3 of all women have had trauma related to abortion. One third of all women have experienced an abortion, which can be extremely traumatic for many women. 1/3 of all women have been exposed to some kind of sexual abuse, and 1/3 of all women have been exposed to some kind of rape. So the odds that any woman we work with, that any woman we encounter has experienced some form of trauma is very high. And so how do we as women support our bodies to stay open, support our hearts to stay open, especially in these times of stress like we're in right now with the situation going on around the world, when it might feel safer to close down, to shut down, to numb out, to go into victim mode. And our bodies start to degenerate when we're in that phase. And that to me is, there's so many amazing things about the hemp plant, but when we take phytocannabinoids, when we get cannabinoids from the hemp plant that we start putting in our body and feeding ourselves, we move from victim to being able to take our power back and be a creator of our life. And our hearts can open, our minds can settle down, our whole nervous system can shift. And we start to regenerate. Our bodies actually start to regenerate themselves and to take care of things that they couldn't otherwise take care of. And we actually get to start feeling more bliss. And that's the beautiful thing too. We're supposed to be making cannabinoids from within inside our own body. And one is anandamide, which is the bliss molecule. Ananda means bliss in Sanskrit. And so when our endocannabinoid system is functioning, that works great. When endocannabinoid system isn't functioning, that is not working. Anandamide is very short-lived. It's like you get out of a yoga class and you've been in Shavasana and you feel super blissed out, and then someone cuts you off at the stoplight and your stress response triggers, and that anandamide, it's gone. You're like, wait, how do I get back to that? That felt so good to feel that level of peace. And Eileen's going to talk more about the cortisol stress response and how it relates here. So I'm not going to go in that direction right now, but there's so much to share here. But to me, nourishing our endocannabinoid system, helping to up our levels of anandamide, up our levels of bliss, is the best thing we can be doing right now. This is the ultimate homeostatic regulator. It's a bioregulator that's going to bring every single other system in our body into balance. The endocannabinoid system is like the master control switch, the overarching system that's going to bring into balance our endocrine system, all our hormones. Everybody knows when a woman's hormones are in balance, she is a much happier person. It's going to bring our immune system into balance. We all want our immune systems functioning optimally right now. This is huge. It's going to support our digestive system and our respiratory system, which we want functioning optimally. All the different systems of the body are going to be upregulated and balanced by the use of the hemp plant. And that's, I think, why we're really all so passionate about it. So there's so much more to say, but I'm going to pass the mic so I don't talk for too long.
Thank you so much, Dara. And I think it's so important that you brought up, some of those statistics, because we sometimes forget about that. And I see it in my practice on a daily basis. And some of my own story centers around that. I mean, I have my own history of things that put me into fight or flight. And the reason I got involved in educating myself and learning some of the pelvic floor therapy and getting involved in that area is just from my own experience of having issues with painful sex. And I had 5 OBGYNs tell me that essentially my diagnosis was that I'm a woman. And so this is just what you have to deal with, and you have to find a way to work around that. And wow, that was just such great advice for me in my younger years. And you know, when I started getting body work and I started getting more connected to my body, I realized it was a scar tissue issue that was causing it from a ruptured appendix, and it was just pulling down on my coccyx and causing all these problems. But also, there were these issues of fight or flight that was keeping me in that I couldn't heal beyond that because of things that were never addressed from my past. And it's so important that these things are acknowledged. It may not be our area of expertise to work with the women on getting over that, as they say, but having these tools such as hemp oil to get us in a state where we can make the right decisions, where we can assess things, where we can release things. And Dr. Eileen, I think this is a great time for you to share your knowledge on the stressors and the stress that we endure on a constant basis, and what it does with our cortisol and what that does to our body. And particularly right now, I mean, this is always something that needs to be discussed and looked at is stressors in general, but particularly right now with the coronavirus, and everybody is, their state of fight or flight is heightened even more. So share with us your perspective on all of that.
Fantastic. Well done so far, ladies. And I can't express how honored I am to be among such esteemed women workers. All of us here are just really doing our job to hold up the team. So thank you for allowing me to be on here, Erica. So talking about stressors, let's talk about 2 hormones that our body makes. We make adrenaline and we make cortisol. Adrenaline is, both of these are made by our kidneys. Above our kidneys, there's something called adrenals. It's above the kidneys. Above is ad. The adrenals producing adrenaline are going to, it's going to happen when we have a gun to the head, when you have a tiger in the room, when there's major fight or flight stress, like I have to get out of this situation right now. That's adrenaline. And it's short and it makes our heart beat really fast and our bodies sweat and our eyes constrict, and everything goes to a fight or flight response. There's also another long-term stress hormone that our body makes. And as women, I can tell you, before I found chiropractic and before I found hemp, and now also looking at microdosing with psilocybin, which has been amazing, I have been under a low-grade cortisol storm forever, day and night, all the time. And what this is the stress hormone that our body makes when the city is under siege. So I've been saying this for 2 decades as I educate people on the fight or flight nervous system, that cortisol is for when a city has been taken over by another army or something like that. There's tanks rolling down the street, but you still have to go get milk. You still have to go do some work to pay your mortgage, all these things. Where are we right now? We are a city under siege. We don't have tanks rolling down the street, but we have, what is it called? Shelter in place and safer at home acts. It is a terrifying time as a mom to wonder what's going on with my children. What's going to be the fate of whatever happens with this, right? The cortisol response is something that is a low-grade stress hormone that our body makes when we feel we're under stress. The thing about this is when our cortisol is on, it doubles down in making the other responses of our body worse off. Just like Dara was talking about, if our endocannabinoid system is working, this support system of our body, we do better. And what's happening with cortisol is when cortisol is on and where we have this little tiny flame burning all the time, we have a system in our, what we're dealing with is a gentle spiraling downward of the symptoms of our body. And I want to tell you about, as far as the coronavirus, what's happening specifically with COVID-19. When people are in trouble, what's happening in the body is what's called a cytokine storm. Anybody here know what a cytokine storm is? A cytokine storm is a major inflammatory response in our body to where all the systems turn to mush. That's about as scientific as it needs to get. It is a real crap storm of inflammation in the entire system. And our body is doing that because it's perceiving stress. So if we go back to why we're here today and what we're talking about in women's health and how we can weather this storm, and I don't mean the cytokine storm, I mean the storm of going through COVID-19 and what it feels like in our bodies, the best way we can do that is to get ourselves out of fight or flight, back into rest and digest, activating the vagus nerve, which I'm sure, who's going to do this? Dr. Leta is probably going to cover this for us, going through some of the ways that we can get out of fight or flight, back into the vagus response, back into the anandamide state of the endocannabinoid system. And the way that we're going to evolve past the stress of COVID-19 and bringing us down is to not be in a state of fight or flight. Is this making any sense? Am I making sense to you, Erica?
Oh yeah, I'm just sitting
Okay.
here thinking how nice it'll be to get back to bliss.
Great.
That's
So-
gonna be my logo right now.
Right. And so if we're going to turn that around, if we're going to do this to where we're not spiraling downward, but instead spiraling upward in our evolutionary state of being, anandamide is key for this. So is activating the vagus nerve. And anandamide is the bliss hormone that is present during anything. There was a study done by a guy that he called it the lucky hormone. And what he was saying was that there's a gene response. Sorry, I had to get to that page in my brain. A gene response where you can deactivate the FAAH gene trait in the body. And the thing that's interesting about that is that FAAH destroys anandamide. And if our body doesn't make enough FAAH, one of the benefits is that we feel less stress. Our body goes into the world feeling less stress because anandamide sticks around longer. And so if we can learn daily practices, because there's supposed to be about 20% of the population have this. My husband for sure has this. He's never stressed and I don't get it, but he can walk into the world and he's just fine about whatever's going to happen today will be fine for tomorrow. I'm the one worrying about whether our kids are going to be alive tomorrow. For me, I had to learn this practice of how to, on a daily basis, do activities and take supplements to help my body stay out of this fight or flight space. And one of the things that I noticed with this lucky gene trait is that anandamide is the Hertz. If you look at the energy of each of our emotions, the Hertz rate of each emotion is labeled, and anything like anxiety, jealousy, depression, all these things are a very low Hertz rate. And things like bargaining or trying to be hopeful are all just about, they're still below love, and love is 500. And at love and above 500, with gratitude, happiness, basically being present in a present state, we are spiraling upward in our evolved state and allowing the anandamide state, which is anything 500 or above, to help us manage our world.
And didn't you say that cats purr at 600?
That's what Leta said. What was that, Leta?
You told me that, yes, which, yeah, explains why my cat sleeps on me purring every night. So apparently he's going to work every night, keeping him busy.
Nice.
Raising
Wow.
your frequency, baby.
What's that?
He's raising your frequency.
He's raising my frequency. Yeah, he's got a lot of, he's got his work cut out for him. But thank you. Amazing information, amazing and so pertinent to today in particular and these times. Dr. Leta, I would love to have you share your thoughts about all this, women's bodies, what's happening, particularly from your traditional Chinese medicine view, and so much education and training beyond that in cannabinoids in general. So do tell.
Thanks, Erica. Where to start?
Yeah, right.
Well, I passionately believe that all women can and should be active participants in supporting, improving, maintaining our health. I mean, we need to put ourselves in the driver's seat. We can't, it's ultimately up to us, not our doctors, to decide what's best for us. So bringing this awareness to all women is huge, Erica. So thank you so much for starting the conversation. In the conversation of all of us talking, I mentioned that I'm a Chinese medical practitioner. And what that means is that there's a sector of just the fundamental, I want to say foundational knowledge on what we call Taoist sexology. And I just want to bring it in because we haven't even gone into in this conversation around sex, and we can save that for another time. But there's these three treasures called Jing, Qi, and Shen. And in Taoist sexology, in essence, is how to heal your mind and body through engaging in intimacy. So I'm just going to bookmark because it's possible it'd be really interesting to talk about maybe for another time menstruation or for another time endometriosis. We could talk so many things that are very common. You mentioned painful sex, Erica, but I wanted to tell you that Shen, I want to just briefly describe Jing Qi Shen. I want to briefly describe my microcosmic orbit, a little bit of Chinese medicine. Then I want to tie in and circle back to cannabinoids as a therapeutic agent for women's health and health for all, really. But Shen is the spirit, the divinity within all of us. Okay, so it can be cultivated by meditation and self-introspect. Okay. Do we have enough time right now to be meditating and having this inquiry? Taoists, we're always like going back to within. That's our driving force. That's the wisdom that we live our life from. And nature informs us. And when you observe nature, you see, the elements and how they interact. And then you study animals and you understand the seasons with farming through the sun and moon and the cycles. And that informs macro, micro, you and what makes sense, what's going on for me mentally and emotionally. So that's kind of basic. But Qi, most of us know what Qi is, right? So it's the force that activates you and then it also circulates. I mean, that's a very bare bones description. But Jing, okay? So Jing is the main element that constitutes your physical being. Okay, original Jing, your original Jing came from your parents. So you could think of it as your constitutional essence, your Jing. But then during your lifetime, you can develop and nourish that Jing through clean water, which is a huge topic now, clean air, huge topic, what we're breathing in environmentally, and clean food, again, huge topic. And we wonder why we have so many, when you talked about adrenal issues, okay? So in an essence, I always tell patients, your body is the car, but Jing is the battery. A very important fundamental aspect, which I can't ignore in Taoist philosophy, is dualism, okay? The idea that opposite forces in the universe complement each other and work together in a balancing way. So everybody knows that Tai Chi symbol of the yin yang, okay? So I'm going to give you a very quick example on how this relates into real life, on how we work with patients, because I think most of the people, most Americans do not even understand the power in self-cultivation, in understanding how I feel, what I desire. I mean, even, from a moon standpoint, I feel like the moon, our menses, facilitates that internal time. And then we're able to communicate our needs, draw a boundary, make requests. And that can be just in communication, lifestyle, it could be in intimacy. So there's this thing called cowgirl, and I can bring in some humor here, but cowgirl is when you're on top.
I think we all went there by this.
Oh, there-
Okay.
I think she is going there. Sounds like she's going there.
Go there.
I'm just going to give one
there, go
example. I hope my mom's not watching. So we all know that, you're on top and you're doing it. But what's interesting is that in Chinese medicine, we might prescribe that position for when a woman has low blood pressure, when she has too much nerves, right? So it calms the nerves. I mean, it's really interesting. So we do very specific positions to change your physiology. So that's just an example of how much our microcosmic orbit, how much your chi, how much understanding how everything is interconnected. We used to say a mind-body connection. It's actually the same. It's just one. Mm-hmm. So I do want to mention that I teach Qigong. Qigong is, I call it a moving meditation. It's a fitness aspect of Chinese medicine. It's actually breath work, very similar to yoga, very similar to fitness, all in one. So it's very efficient. But what we're doing is there's a channel down the front and a channel down the back. And what we're doing is we're wanting your qi and jing to be circulating. But what happens is that it gets blocked. It either gets blocked at the vertex or it gets blocked really at the bottom, the pelvic bone at the bottom. So it's an energy cultivation technique, and it's to refill your reservoirs. And we call it the circulation of light. And it involves deep breathing exercises with this meditation and concentration. And what I find is that there's one very specific protocol that 5-element acupuncturists do when patients come in and they've tried everything. I'm sure you've heard it. You've had friends try everything and nothing is working. There's a treatment where we're literally unblocking from the top and the bottom, and it's pretty profound when the microcosmic orbit is not circulating. So, Chinese medicine is so vast in the sense that it's been around for so long, but in some ways it's very simple. You have qi, and that relates to energy, and you either have enough energy to digest food, you either have enough energy to be in the day, like you're immune, or you don't. And of course, it's in some ways it's very complicated. We're either blocking energy or we're leaking it. Very similar to money, very similar to love. It's not in the particular. But when we don't have enough energy, we can take what you're saying. If I don't have this endocannabinoid system, that is this unbelievably hardwired system to maintain upright function, presence, relaxed energy, being able to just be here, then we are able to take from the cannabis plant, which is such a blessing. I joke around a lot in my lectures. It's not that I don't love spinach and don't love kale. I mean, kale had a huge publicist the last 5 years. Great, I love kale. Sweatshirts, people are wearing sweatshirts with kale. But the reality is it's not going to conduct receptors in your brain and all over your body, your immune cells, your T cells, B cells, macrophages, like cannabis. I mean, nothing is going to replace it. I mean, even though I love frankincense or black pepper or kava kava or maca, it's just not. This is the only thing on the planet that will go into your brain and literally resuscitate the system. That what I've seen clinically, people's endocannabinoid system has probably been dormant even when they were born. Okay, and this is why we're seeing spiritually bankruptcy. We're seeing people disconnected because they're not even sure who they are. When in the ethers, people plant in thoughts or emotions, people don't realize, is that mine? Am I really feeling that? And I tell people skin is such a beautiful reminder that someone else's stuff is theirs, that we have this container. So I always go back to, there are things that we do in Chinese medicine. Yes, if you don't have enough energy, absolutely see a chiropractor and, get our Vigo, get, abdominal, Chine San massage, see an acupuncturist. Plants are the most accessible. Right now, we're all isolated, okay? But we can drop ship plants, right? We can drop ship herbal extracts because Mother Earth, she is giving us what we need to remind ourselves the truth of who we are, to give us the spaciousness in what Dr. Eileen just mentioned, to relax, right? That bliss molecule, the motivation molecule, 2-arachidonoglycerol, to then say, all right, I'm in that space. I'm in that moment in time where I can take a breath and really download who I'm meant to be, what's important. And when I go out in the world, how am I going to talk? How am I going to treat people? How am I going to be present with people? So we all have to assess as women. We are so powerful. I feel like our superpower is our gut, our intuition. And we didn't mention this, but the brain-gut connection, everybody talks about the microbiome. What about the cannabis, the hemp connection? It's a complete channel opening to the brain and gut. So, again, I feel like I'm rambling. I could go on forever, but to wrap up, what I'm really trying to say is that, you have this very dynamic, ever-changing, every 2 hours, as far as the Chinese clock, energy system. And in any moment, you can say, this is why you might have a shitty morning and then have an amazing afternoon, because you have different resources available to you from the cosmos, okay? Because your energy is circulating in a different meridian every 2 hours. So that's why I say, don't give up. If things are bad, go for a walk, take a nap, wait a couple hours, okay? So if we can become masters of understanding and figuring out how to tune, you tune your guitar before you play. It's like, I want to get an attunement to then, all right, I'm ready to move forward. I'm ready to move into action. But if spirit isn't physically moving you, that's when you sit still. And if you aren't able to figure it out, that's when you take what we call hemp extract, because nothing is going to usher in this spiritual presence. Nothing else is going to give you that perspective and bandwidth to remind you of the stuff you already know. So anyway, again, a lot of tools and tips as far as Chinese medicine and Qigong and all that other stuff and everything else that we're offering. But the one thing I would leave is, for women especially, we have so many receptors in the uterus. And I can't, I tell people this is like a superpower for me. And it's like, I used to think Chinese medicine is the best kept secret. So is this hemp extract, and it's time that all of us don't stay quiet about this, because I'm feeling that people are really asking for this knowledge.
Wow. Beautifully said. Fascinating information. I have so many thoughts and comments I'm trying to retrain. It's a good thing I took my hemp oils before we started this. A couple things. Oh boy, where do I start? I have a question. I have heard that when they mapped the acupuncture points and when they mapped the ECS, it was almost an exact replica. Is that correct?
Yeah, a lot of similarities. And so one of the things, we talk about the immune cells, a large number of our endocannabinoid receptors, CB2, is on the macrophages, the killer cells. And so, and Dr. Eileen, you talked about
in the
what?
gut. You have to say in the gut.
Yeah, in the gut. So Eileen talked about inflammatory, the cytokine overload. So literally, they discovered, why can I put an acupuncture needle here and not here? It's because there's more energy, there's more resources here. There's none here. Okay. So very similar with why, of course you can learn acupressure, but with the receptors is that there's very specific target points to where the hemp can come into the body and then conduct what it does. I mean, it is, in my research, honestly, it was profound at how much, once this plant gets into the body, what it's doing, just on gene transcription modulation, understanding that it's changing the way your DNA is being expressed. I mean, it is incredible for the brain. So, again, maybe that's time for another conversation, but it is amazing, the overlay. And so I tell people, yes, acupuncture stimulates CB2 receptors. Absolutely. Qigong releases anandamide. Amazing. And then we have hemp. And for people that don't have access to people like me or Eileen or you, Dara, they can at least get started on a hemp protocol. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Can I jump in for, oh, go ahead.
Yep, go for it.
I just wanted to say one thing, because Leta, what you were talking about with the clock in TCM, I just wanted to give an example, because that might sound kind of out there for people. And I want to give the example of, like, for example, from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. is lung time. And so I want to ground it in something practical, because for anyone who's had a cough, may no one have a cough right now. For anyone who has kids with asthma or who's grown up with asthma or anything respiratory, you know that that's when your kids wake up having a hard time to breathe. That's when you wake up and have the most intense coughing fits, because it's the time when the energy's in the lungs and the lungs are trying to clear itself. So I just wanted to give like one practical example of what that Chinese medicine clock throughout the day looks like,
Awesome.
because I think we've all experienced that when we have had anything respiratory going on. And I also just wanted to give this 1 minute of information. Everything that you said, Eileen and Leta, was so powerful. So thank you. Is that, you know, some of you may be saying, why is our endocannabinoid system dormant? Why is this system not working in our bodies? And I just want to go historical for 1 second to say that the hemp plant has co-evolved alongside humanity for millennia. You look back in Chinese medicine texts, you look back in Ayurvedic texts, we're talking 3,000 to 5,000 years. The hemp plant has been a crucial part of these ancient systems of medicine and well-being. And what happened? Well, when the United States was founded, it was mandatory for people to plant hemp in their yard, in their home farm that everyone had. Time went along, and in the 1930s in our country, unfortunately, it was Ford, right? He made the first hemp car that could run on hemp fuel. And this became a huge threat. And this was purely political and corporate interests trumping the medicine that humanity needs to function. The plant, sorry, we make no medical claims that this is going to heal, treat, cure, prevent any illness or disease. I want to make a disclaimer, but this plant has co-evolved with humanity and nourished our endocannabinoid systems for we don't know how long. And so, you know, in the 1930s, all of a sudden, big cotton, big pharma, big oil, big paper, we're all like, whoa, we got to squash this plant because this is going to destroy our industry, because hemp can replace every single one of those. And I'm sure many of you already know this. And so all of a sudden the hemp plant was taken away from us. It had been in our pharmacopoeia. Western doctors here in the States were using hemp and cannabis to treat various conditions before that happened. In many countries all around the world, that was happening. All of a sudden it was gone. It wasn't in our food chain. Hemp had also been part of the food supply. It was animal fodder for the chickens, for the pigs. So we were getting it through our diet. We were getting it through our pharmacopoeia. Doctors were prescribing it. All of a sudden, it's gone. Now here we are 90 years later. The endocannabinoid system was just discovered 25 years ago. So much of this we're still figuring out. Leta actually, I think, got her doctorate specifically in cannabis. She knows so much. Talk about an expert. So I'm so happy that you went into that. I just wanted to give that historical perspective of like, why are we so depleted? Well, we haven't had this access to this plant for literally 90 years. And I know we want to talk about the implications of hemp in fertility and in women's health on a greater level. And I don't know if we want to go into that now, or if we want to wait, maybe do another one next week, because it's already kind of been long, but that's such an important continuation of the conversation.
Yeah, actually, I was just thinking, because there's so many topics that I really want to dive into, the fertility, libido, all this good stuff. But obviously, it's a wonderful thing. We can keep going and keep touching on and dive into each of these subjects. I just want to come back to Dr. Leta, what you were saying about the uterus having the most receptors. I think that is so important. And for me, myself, and again, no claims of, curing and all that good stuff, as Dara said, but for me in particular, I had issues with fibroids. And once I had started taking the hemp oil, I had a fibroid that actually started to self-abort. I didn't even know they could do that. And that was my experience with it. And I just know for me that's how it supported my body and getting it back to balance with my hormones. So I want to ask this question, and then there's a question on a Facebook. That's why I keep looking over, by the way, to the side here, is just to check that Facebook is still good. And there's a question I want to address, and then maybe we'll wrap it up and then continue the conversation at another time. But what I wanted to, there was this thing that hormones were everything, and hormones are, what regulated everything for women, our mood, all the topics that I mentioned that were important around this conversation, our moon cycles, fertility, menopause, our mental state, our libido. Now what we're finding is it's the ECS that regulates the hormones that regulate this, and this. So just to do a general, since we can't hit every topic, would you all say that that's what's happening here is if we wanted to put it in layman's terms, it's the hemp oil is balancing our ECS, that balances our hormones, that balances our organs and the function and hormonal function that's going on. Is that
Sure.
a good description?
I can take this first if you
Yeah.
ladies agree with that. I would say that that's true. It's not just hormones though, it's everything. So if the endocannabinoid system, the ECS, is nourished and detoxed, it supports all the other systems of the body. There is fantastic research on golly, I was going to say transcription. The matriculae of bone, that there are endocannabinoid receptors in the bone telling the bone to produce osteoblast activity, and then also telling the message to the endocannabinoid receptors in the brain to tell the brain to produce endoblastic activity for the hormones. So that's just bones. We got it in our muscles, we got it in our ligaments, we've got it in our fascia, in our gut, in everything. Every other system is going to work better if the endocannabinoid system gets to oversee it and support it. So, but yes, I would say for sure the endocrine system is greatly affected, and I feel like it's the cushion. And if you don't have a cushion left, you can get the cushion back. It makes it so that you have the ability to help come back to homeostasis.
Well, and there's an issue we've kind of skipped over, but it's super important. And I think Dr. Leta, you brought it up, is the whole mind gut, and there's so much discussion now, it's been going on for years, that your gut is your second brain. And some people say it's actually our first brain. I think it's 10,000 more neurons giving messages from your gut to your brain versus your brain to your gut. So what's going on in the gut is going to determine what's going on in the rest of us, our mood, our other bodily functions, the inflammation in our body, our emotions, all of that as well, correct?
Hey, Erica, I want to ask you a question, because you went to a seminar where you heard this, and it just validated for Dr. Leta, for Dara, and for me, as well as for you, because we all happen to do visceral work on the gut. What is that you heard about the research about the gut?
So
visceral work.
Yes, I was in a visceral manipulation class, and there was a slide that came up, and I posted it because it was relative to what I do and what we all do. But it said that when you work on the fascial system and when you work on muscles, when you're doing hands-on work, you are stimulating the cannabinoid system and the nitric oxide, not system, but release in our body. You could articulate it much better than me, but basically we're stimulating, we're moving things, we're involving that just by doing hands-on work on the body. And that's how embedded these things are into everything that we do. I mean, our body is connected, every cell, by fascia. We start out as, when an embryo, we start out one cell and we turn into 50 to 70 trillion cells that are all connected by this fascial system, which, Dr. Leta, if I understand, a lot of people say that this fascial system is where some of the chi and where our life force can travel in. So it's super important to have this balanced, not restricted, and that's why the body work to me is so important. But if I understood, and I was trying to find the research behind that, and I failed to come across that, the information that I wanted, but it just shows how important it is that these things are everywhere in our body, but that it can be stimulated throughout our body, because every organ, every function in our body relies on cannabinoids and what they do.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay,
There's a question in the thread.
Yes, is it Charmaine's question?
Yeah, on immunity.
Yep. Yes, so I wanted to bring that one up. So Charmaine says there, and I think she might have missed, because I think you touched on this, Eileen, in the beginning, but there's a thought that CBD depresses the immune system and may not be optimal to take right now, as we want our immune system as optimal as possible due to COVID-19. Do you agree with this?
So I've gotten a lot of questions on this. I'm sure the rest of us have as well. So I want to address that we have a hemp extract. It is not CBD. It is a hemp extract, and its job is not to address one particular thing. Hemp is, its main job is to nourish and detox the endocannabinoid system. And when that system is working, it will very specifically address the immune system, the endocrine system, the cardiovascular system, the gut, which is where the immune system tends to be, and the nervous system. And that's just the start of our research. As I mentioned before, there's good research on bone matriculation. There's research on ligaments and things like that. So I think it's a very limiting statement and a limiting thought that whatever we're taking could be affecting our body adversely based on one specific nutrient in that hemp extract. Because our hemp extract has a tremendous amount of other nutrients in it besides.
I would love to add on to that, and Leta, I'm sure you would too. So what the hemp plant is doing is that it is modulating the systems in our bodies. So if you're someone like myself who has autoimmune issues, who has an immune system that's not functioning optimally, let's say my immune functioning subpar, taking this hemp extract is going to bring me up to midline. It's going to balance my immune system out. If someone is in like a cytokine storm, I don't even want to say that because I don't want to make a medical claim, but like if someone's immune system was overreacting and kind of firing like rapid, it's going to bring it down to midline. So wherever you're at, we're going for homeostasis. We're going for balance. And that's why it supports everyone. It's not just for people with an overreactive immune system. It's not just for people with a suppressed immune system. It's for everybody. And it's not just, cannabidiol or CBD, which is the most kind of well-known cannabinoid. There's hundreds of different molecules in the hemp plant. And in the particular extract that the four of us work with, there's also CBG, cannabidiol, which is incredibly beneficial for the intestines and the digestive tract, which we know is very crucial to our immunity. You can look up CBG and different microbes and like SARS, different kinds of viruses to see past studies that have been done about beneficial use of CBG with different microbes, viruses, things like that. So the cannabidiol is very powerful. And then we have 7 different terpenes, and all the different terpenes have their own properties, which are also antimicrobial, antiviral, very, very supportive. Again, this is not a medicine, no medical claims. This is just extracts from the hemp plant that are available for us to use to support that immune system to be at its best, to be at its most balanced, most homeostatic self. So I hope that that helps clarify too. And Leta, I'm curious what else you have to share.
Well, I just have seen that so many people have, we hear this all day long, inflammation. And this is what I say to people. Do I believe that every human on the planet needs to be on this CBG hemp extract? Yes, for many reasons. We live in a different world environmentally. Toxics, we have 5G, people have been in a sympathetic overdrive state, there's all these things. But it allows me to have a deeper conversation, which is what we're doing right now, is what is health? Health is a #1 value for everybody on the planet right now, which is what we want it to be. We don't want it to be work or travel, money and etc. But it allows me to have a deeper conversation because first thing I do is I talk about sugar, right? I talk about sugar. I talk, of course I talk about, mindset and a bunch of other things. But once I can get the sugar and the food stuff under control, because women have so many blood sugar imbalances, which then causes all these other things like PMS, and it contributes to endometriosis. And so this is answered prayer for people, this hemp extract, absolutely. Yes, the answer is I've seen it boost the immune system. Oh my gosh, people that have been on this extract, they say that they don't get sick. But I'm also having a conversation with them. People can't still be eating fast food and eat, ice cream and, whatever else they're doing and expect this just to be like, okay, this is going to be the end all be all. It's part of the solution. Is it one of the biggest parts? Absolutely. But it allows me to, once they start to feel better from this, then they're able to have a little bit of energy or a little bit of spaciousness to make the next best decision, which is maybe to take a break from sugar or alcohol, then the next best decision. So, but sorry, I feel like I get sidetracked, but I would say I've absolutely seen it boost immune. You know, when you look at the benefits of CBG, like Dara mentioned, and CBD, if you Google it, get on PubMed, feel free to ask us for some resources. It's been profound at what it does, but absolutely think of it as an adaptogen. This plant has intelligence. Your body has intelligence. It's going to do what's meant for you. If you have back pain and you have a headache and a sore throat and you're bleeding, what is it going to do? It's going to deal with the bleeding first. Okay. So you have to understand that, you know, two people might have back pain, but then for one person, they forget they don't have headaches anymore. And they say, well, it didn't work for my back pain. It did, you know, so, you know, I always tell people the plant and your spiritual intelligence will decide in hierarchy, in order, how it's going to truly serve you in that moment.
I love that. I love that. And on that note, wow, it's been an hour and I feel like we're just getting started, but we need to close this out. There's a couple questions that we didn't get to. I would encourage everyone to please.
Can we answer really fast? Can we answer that one?
The one that Kathy just put up?
No, I saw the one that Aaliyah put up. I know, Eileen, you're under a time crunch.
I'm going to have to go soon.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think she has to go. Dr. Eileen, thank you so much for your profound wisdom and sharing it with us today. Will you please just tell everybody what your information is, where they can reach you, and maybe go back and put it on the Facebook Live. And my intent is to continue the conversation and do more of these. So I want everybody to feel free to continue asking your questions, and hopefully we can address it on another platform, if not individually.
So you want me to give my information now and you'll continue?
Yep, we're going to continue. There's two very important questions that I'd like to get to, but yes, please.
So a great way to reach me is drei.com. That's DOCTOREI.com. That's where all of my information is. You can send me an email, things like that. And I'm also the only Eileen Karpfinger in the world. You can always find me here on Facebook. Okay.
Wonderful.
Lovely. Thank you again for including me, everybody.
Yes, thank you. Dara, would you like to address that question?
I want to dovetail with what Leta was just talking about, because she was going into, she was talking about sugar and then she was talking about alcohol, and something that came up and then left earlier was just how much taking the hemp extract puts our nervous systems in a place where we feel safe to feel. Safety was something that we wanted to talk about, and I'm sure we'll get into it more on the next one, because I know a lot of people right now aren't necessarily feeling safe. And we know as women that in order to feel safe, we need certain things in our nervous system, for sure, needs to be out of fight or flight. When we are in that frozen, numb place, we can't cry. I've been there. I'm working through PTSD from being a midwife, and it's why I'm retired. I was at a lot of very traumatic births, and I'm working on resolution for that. But there were chunks of time when I couldn't cry for months. And it's like when you feel yourself in that frozen place, right, where it doesn't feel safe to even feel, or you don't even know how to help your nervous system get back into the place where you can feel. And that is when we start to numb out. And before I started using this hemp extract, I was so stressed in my life. I was using THC on a daily basis to deal with discomfort in my body. And I'm not a drinker. And when I started, right before I started using the hemp extracts, I was even having a drink most afternoons just to handle having 3 kids, all under the age of 11 at that time, and making dinner with a brand new baby. Like, it was crazy. I mean, the stress, I call these hemp extracts magic mommy juice, because people call it peace in a bottle. People call it all kinds of things. I call it magic mommy juice, because I can't imagine being a mother and not having these to support me on a daily basis. And so, I started taking them, and I don't have an addictive personality. 2 weeks went by and I thought, I have not thought about making myself a margarita. I have not thought about using THC, because I feel at peace, because my nervous system is in a place where it's balanced. And I thought about doing EMDR and different processes to work through my PTSD for years, but I wasn't ready. And these hemp extracts helped put me in a place where a year ago, I finally started being able to do the work processing through it. So we need to set our nervous system up in a way where we are not numbing out. and where we can feel. And I've seen that with women, with men who are like, wow, I don't want to be drinking anymore. What? I used to have this many beers a night and I'm not even, because we feel good all of a sudden inside. And what an incredible gift to have at that time, especially right now when we want to support our immune systems to thrive. And we know that alcohol and sugar can degrade that. So in terms of being able to cry, being able to process and feel these emotions, for me, having access to these hemp extracts is crucial in keeping my body out of fight or flight and freeze on a daily basis, and being able to integrate and process everything that's going on.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I see that a lot in my practice, the numbing out. And, you know, why not be completely vulnerable on here? But I mean, that was a process that I had to work through. I mean, I started doing the work on myself maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but the hemp oil didn't come into my life until about 3 years ago. And what a difference. You know, I had already started doing the work, doing the meditations, telling myself I was worthy and all these things. But it's once the hemp oil came, and it really brought into my life opportunities to really grow from that, whether it brought up stuff in a nice, healthy way for me to work with, because, you know, the hemp oil itself actually works on the frontal cortex and helps us make better decisions, you know, and we want to be in a place to make better decisions when our shit's coming up, right? So for me, that was the last, you know, the cherry on top, just to really help me gather everything together and make better decisions and understand and move out of the place that I was, and to take everything that was coming to me at life as a growth opportunity, because I was able to handle it and not just react like, you know, this is terrible, this is this, and I'm just going to walk away, or I'm going to close down and I'm going to numb out, because, you know, we get pretty good at doing that. You know, I had a lot of training for that. And with the oil, instead, we're present and we're there with it so that we can understand and process, which is vital. You know, everything gets stored down. Our higher brain just, are you guys familiar with the book, Waking the Tiger? And this is one of the first books I was told to read, and he has a second one out now that I'm trying to get to, but Peter Levine and Waking the Tiger. And he explains how with our evolved brain, when something happens, when an animal is out there being chased by a larger animal and it gets caught, it stops, it freezes. The larger animal thinks, well, I don't want this dead thing, you know, and walks away. And so the smaller animal goes home, shakes it all off, gets rid of it, goes to sleep, wakes up the next day, goes out, you know, all happy the next day, and probably puts itself in the same situation because it got rid of all of that. Whereas we just stuff it down in our body and say, okay, it's gone now. I don't have to deal with it because it's in the back somewhere. I don't know where it is. It's gone. And it really isn't. It's in our body. It's affecting us on a daily basis. It's affecting our decisions, our emotions, our thoughts, and our bodily functions. And that's why this oil is super important, to bring us to that state, to recognize these things and be able to work with it and move through it. There's so many other things I wanted to talk about today. And Annette, I love you. She's like, oh my God, don't go.
Lisa, so, is there anything else you want to add about the, like, how to help ourselves cry or feel the feelings of emotion right now?
Well, often with patients, when they have a feeling or thought, and usually it's not a joyful one, I have them do this repeated exercise of asking themselves the same question over and over to distill. Because usually when we're having a feeling, let's just say sadness, of course, we're feeling all the time as we felt sadness. So how much, you know, of this percentage of sadness is for the particular, you know, situation in front of us. But I usually will say to my patient, you know, go back to asking yourself what's really going on, you know, what's really going on. So I used to do weight loss for 7 years. I don't anymore, but weight loss is really just a side effect of the disconnection. But they would, you know, make pasta because they you know, but by the end they're unconsciously just making pasta and eating it, right? Or pizza or whatnot. But after asking themselves 17 times, she just missed her grandmother and called her grandmother instead of eating the pasta because her grandmother used to make the pasta. So it's that idea of, you know, what part of me is this coming from? You know, is it the time where at 7 when your mom forgot to pick you up from school, or is the time where your lunch money was stolen at 13? I mean, it's like we have cellular memory and emotional memory that everybody knows about. So so for me, it's about continuing to ask ourselves, and like you said, Dara, giving us the spaciousness to ask ourselves really good questions, being curious, and you not believe everything you think and feel, and really just you get to decide. The endocannabinoid system is the master controller of your body, and you are the master controller of you have your own sovereignty, energetic sovereignty. You have domain, power over this. You have agency. So what that means is you get to decide. When someone asks you, how are you feeling? Take a moment. Let's not be robotic, because in every moment you're a new person. It's a choice if you're the same person that you were 5 minutes ago. And, it sounds a little funny, but so I just feel like this time is really ushering us into womb space, to the slowing down, to really connecting and discerning, what am I thinking and feeling? And if it really makes sense, yes, I'm feeling bitterness, I'm feeling excited, whatever that is, then yes, it's like stamp it. Okay, that's what I'm feeling. But I feel like most of what I've seen in the clinic lately is people either don't understand or not really sure what they feel. And there's so much disconnection, they just choose something very quickly. And it really doesn't allow for holistic healing. I don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sorry, I had to put on mute because I'm a single mom and my dog kid is home here with me. I wanted to, I think there was something else I wanted to comment on that, but it just lost my mind. And I know we need to wrap it up. I do want to, I'm so thankful that this product has not only brought us all together, but given us such a tool to help with the women that we work with and ourselves as women. And, a couple of your moms and, the rest of us we're out in the world with, I have nieces and friends and their children, and just all my women friends that it's just so important to see that we all are healthy and healing and thriving and happy. And that's a key part of it too. I just don't want to be getting by, and I don't want my friends to just be getting by. I want us to be happy. And now in particular is a time where we really got to dive in deep. And, I had just taken 3 weeks off before all this started after a surgery. And there were so many things I was going to get done during that time, and I didn't get any of it done. And I remember saying, wow, I got to go back to work now. I have so much to do. And kind of regret saying that because I've got some extra time off now, but I really feel good about it. I'm not going into that space of fear. I'm staying in the faith, and I'm really using this time to do wonderful things like this. And also to really take that time to go within, as you were saying. And it's so, so important. I'm a procrastinator. I find myself constantly saying, I'm going to start tomorrow. I'm going to start this meditation practice. I'm going to start Qigong. I'm going to read this book. And now is the time to do this, Erica. I'm talking to myself here. And I'm really appreciating it, enjoying it, and just really taking that quiet time to go within and do that extra bit of healing. So thank you for being on here and for sharing everything, your beautiful faces, your wisdom. I'm like I was saying, I'm just so in love with this product, but I'm in love with it beyond the fact of how amazing it is for us, the fact that it brought this community together. I want to wrap up with a question from Kathy. There are so many companies jumping on the hemp train. How do you know which is best out there? And we did kind of, I think Dr. Eileen mentioned a few things about ours in particular, but if one of you just want to do like a snapshot of what to look for in a good hemp, I think that would be awesome. And we'll end it on that. And then I would also love for you both to say maybe your email addresses, or if you want to put them in the link there, or if you don't want to do that, we can just, it was questions that could be directed to you specifically. I can pass them along. What the best way to somebody can reach out to you if their question in particular pertains to the subject that you're so knowledgeable on. So if anybody would like to kind of address Kathy's question first, that would be fabulous. Or I could too, but.
Do you want to take it, Dara, or me?
I think you should.
Okay, yeah.
I'm happy
I
to if
think-
you don't want to.
No, I mean, you can fill in the blanks. I mean, for me, honestly, you know, I had to learn how to read a food label, and then a supplement label seemed even harder, and then try the cannabis industry. So, it's interesting with hemp. You know, it's labeled a dietary supplement because of FDA, all that kind of stuff, but it's really a food. It's a food product, right? So and we're supplementing our diet. But for me, I'm looking at, you know, we have technology. So I look for, is there a QRC code on the bottle where I can look at the certificate of analysis? Hemp's a bioaccumulator. So whatever's in the soil for the last 10 years, it'll suck up. So I want to look at the mineral profile, like heavy metals, of course. I'm looking at what's in the product, you know, I mean, which cannabinoids, which terpenes, you know, are there other things in it? What's the spectrum? I'm looking at, of course, what's not in it. So I talked about heavy metals, mercury. Cannabis and coffee tend to have a lot of mycotoxins, mold. So how it's cultivated, bioavailability. So I'm looking at what's in the product, what's not in the product. I'm also looking at the mission of the company. I'm looking at, in my own practice, you know, service-based, health-based, empowering, not for profit. I mean, I do understand companies need to make money, but very specifically with the cannabis industry, people have gotten in just to make money. And so I'm always looking for that, you know, who's behind it. Every time I go to look at a product, a patient texted me this morning, hey, what is this? Is this good? I go to the founder, I go to their LinkedIn, you know, I'm constantly looking at the COA. So that's important to know the mission and the vision behind the company, because then you can learn about what's the relationship with the farmers. You know, even with Chinese herbs, you know, things that are made in China, most of us aren't even buying things from China because it's not good, you know, full of pesticides. Chinese medicine is full of heavy metals unless you're getting the right source. So after all that, I look at patients with absorption. We talked about brain gut health. We touched upon it briefly, but most Americans I have found, it's either they don't have good digestion, absorption, assimilation, or elimination. You know, of course, we could look at small intestine lining, the microbiome. And so then cannabis is an expensive molecule. So now you're going to spend extra money to take in some hemp, you know, that then it's an olive oil, MCT oil, alcohol, coconut oil that you have to digest through the stomach. And I find it's wasteful. So for me, it's delivery system I'm looking at, absolutely. And then now that science changes every 6 months, because now there is funding in this country for research and clinical trials, I'm also looking at the new research on cannabinoids and terpenes. And there's been unbelievable information science around it. So I'm not just looking at hemp, cannabidiol. I'm looking at cannabidiol, the stem cell cannabinoid. I'm looking at, the terpenes, they individually, what they're doing and synergistically how powerful. And that's why I chose this company and this product, because there's literally not one other product right now in the world that does what this product does. If there was, I would look at it and know about it. There just isn't.
Have anything to add to that, Dara? I mean, that's pretty
that was extremely thorough. Thank you, Leta. I would say that if anyone that's watching this wants more of the data, we have amazing clinical trials that just came out with our chief medical advisor, Dr. Cheng Ron, Cheng, last name is Ruan. You can go to his Facebook page or Instagram. He hosted a day-long seminar with all kinds of leading physicians and thought leaders around the pandemic that's happening right now. He's incredible. He runs second largest integrated medicine clinic in the country in Houston, and right there with Cleveland Clinic. And he's been trialing these extracts. He's our formulator and again our chief medical advisor. He's been doing clinical trials on his patients with these extracts, and what he has seen, anyone that's on any one of us, whoever invited you to check this out, can send you the links to the science pages that we have now very clearly showing extreme improvements in states of well-being, in quality of life indicators, in comfort, other well-being indicators. It's phenomenal to see what's happening. So for me, we are just a supplement. This is not a pharmaceutical. It's not a medicine in any way. There's no claims of healing, treating anything, but we do have the data the way that many pharmaceutical companies and other people would go ahead and do it. You don't see this out there for supplements. I love that we have all the third-party studies, like Leta said, showing that it's free of molds, free of toxins, free of pesticides, because you don't want to be ingesting that, right? The whole point of taking the hemp is to upregulate your well-being and uplevel your health, and that this can do that on such a profound level. So yeah.
Amazing. Yes. Great. Thank you. And Leta, it's drleta.com. Is that correct?
Yes, doctor spelled out doctorleta.com. And yeah, I do a lot of telemedicine, but my online Qigong will be announced next week. So super excited to continue to share that.
Oh, count me in on that. Wonderful. Okay, it's time to wrap up. Darn it. But wow, this has been amazing. Thank you again from my head to soul. I really, really appreciate this abundance of information and all the love. And I love you all. And thank you. And we shall do this again. I think there's plenty more to discuss. And definitely look forward to everybody's questions. Feel free to continue to put questions in the feed, and I'll go over them and see if we can address them, like I said, individually or in future webinars like this. So.
And we will be here. I can't wait till you announce the title. And we're going to be here next Wednesday, correct? At the same time.
Yes. Working on that. Yes.
Okay. Working on that.
Yeah.
We're working on that. We'll announce it. Thank you, Erica, for having the vision and waiting till the perfect moment to launch this.
Thank you for supporting it. And I appreciate it. Love you.
Leta, you're amazing.
Thank you both. We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Okay, let's get this on.
You did it.